Hey, welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. Today's going to be a great day. We got a pick six for you. Lots of cool things to talk about, and then a great interview towards the end of the episode. But first, David, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing great. You know, everything's good down here. I'm watching the Reds play spring training. So anytime you can watch Reds baseball, it's good.
When are we going to get them back from Arizona back to Florida? I go to Florida a lot. It's just a quick 2.5 hour flight from Cincinnati. I've only been to Arizona once in my life, and that was to go out there and watch them in spring training. And I
That's a
probably
good reason to
down
go to
to
Arizona.
Florida once a month. Well, it's true, but it's a lot longer flight, and then flights are more expensive. If I'm not mistaken, they signed a 20-year deal to stay out there, and we're at least 15 years into that.
Wow.
Are they going to come back, or is this a
I have no idea, but I would be so
uh,
happy. I would get to watch spring training every year. That would be wonderful.
yeah, maybe a topic for another podcast.
Maybe it is. Yeah, we'll have to ask Chris from Airtime Thrills. You know, his secondary channels about baseball. Maybe he would know. But let's get into our pick six today. The first up, Universal has announced team member previews of Epic Universe. We were all waiting. We were all waiting. We were all asking cast or team members, you know, at Universal. Every time I went, I was like, so, you know, have you heard anything yet about when your team member previews are starting? And they would always say no. And now they said yes. And the weirdest thing was that once they finally got announced, it was announced for like 2 weeks out. It was like, yeah, so we're going to be doing team member previews, and they start next week. And so now, for in real life, they started today, the Wednesday, the 5th of March, the day you're probably watching this. So people are at Epic Universe right now. How about that?
It's crazy to think that a whole new start from the ground up new park, especially of that size. It's not like they started small and they're building up to it. They're launching at pretty close to what their maximum size will be. And it's the first. I don't know when was the last time this happened in the United States that a park went from the ground up.
Oh, I mean, this big, I don't think it's ever happened. Like, even
Yeah,
Magic
yeah,
Kingdom,
probably
when
not
it
since.
opened, wasn't this big.
Right, but it's still a full park when they did it. They've done a number of different expansions in the meantime, but this is the first time that really that a park has sprung up in what was just I don't know, not a field, but it's just empty ground in Orlando, and in 2 months they're going to be open to the public, and right now they're even open to their employees, which is just it's just crazy to think about, and everything that's there is all from what I've heard is a completely customized concept. I think that the word I heard is that you can't go to another park anywhere, even another Universal park, and find the experiences that you're going to find there. Everything is
Yeah.
completely custom. Now that's something I heard secondhand. I'm not in on those conversations. So if you go there and there's something you can find down the street, okay, I'm wrong. I'll admit that. But from what I've heard, everything there is going to be custom, and it's truly going to be a very unique experience.
Sounds pretty exciting to me.
It absolutely does. So we got pick six number two. What's that smell in the air, you think? Well, this story comes from Cleveland,
Oh,
up in
that's the
Lorraine. We're
smell. The
supposed to
smell is
Cleveland.
the city of
Yeah,
Cleveland.
but there's a landfill in the city of Lorraine that is being reborn as a $12.5 million kart racing complex, and we'll have the link on the channels, so you can go there. And really, at the top of this, where the landfill was, there's a couple tracks that you'll be able to take carts on. And it says, after sitting idle for decades, this forgotten landfill, a 37-acre site in Lorraine, is about to roar back to life with a new purpose. That's a great way to repurpose something. It's something that otherwise would just be sitting there doing nothing, because you're not going to get a housing development to go develop on a landfill, or a commercial building for that matter. But this is a great repurposed use uh, for that property, and it'll be interesting to see as it develops. It looks like the track has already been poured, and I don't know that the article, it's on Cleveland.com, but I don't know that they have a date announced in the article when it's going to open. But I would suspect sometime during the summer operating season.
That'll be pretty cool. No doubt about that. Speaking of new things, that's what we like to talk about here on Pick Six. Kentucky Kingdom, a couple years back, they get reinvigorated when they get purchased by Hershend Entertainment. Why did that name escape me for a moment? When they get purchased by Hershend, and since then, we've seen some new policy changes, but we haven't seen any new major attractions until now. Discovery Meadow, the new land opening at the Kentucky Kingdom this spring, is really starting to come to life. The area is themed as sort of a garden party. Lots of animals, lots of spring sort of theming. And it's going to see 10, that's right, 10 rides completely rethemed, including Storm Chaser, including lots of your favorite attractions. In addition to that, though, we're getting 3 brand new rides, a new nearly 5,000 square foot playground, and 2 new dining venues. Sounds like a whole new park to me. I mean, that's an
It does.
unbelievable change for something that's just they're calling, the revamp of one land.
Well, and if you've been on their website, the video they have there that kind of brings the whole thing to life is really very very unique. And I got to say that Herschend, when they get into a property, if you've been to Dollywood or you've been out to Silver Dollar City, they know how to write stories and they know how to things to make you part of that experience. And they do it unlike any other peers. And that's not to say anything bad about the other peers. It's just not what they do, and that's just a story that Herschend does well.
Absolutely,
And
they
it'd
do.
be very interesting to get there this summer and experience it.
Sure, I'm definitely excited for that.
All right, pick six, number four. SeaWorld owner, which is now United Parks and Resorts, plans new attractions in Florida to their Orlando and Busch Gardens property in Tampa. Now, in the story, it's not clickbait really, but it came out in the Orlando Sentinel today that, or I guess it was last week when it came out, that they reported a decline in attendance, and to say a decline in attendance in 2024, there's more story, there's more context behind that because there's a couple of hurricanes that blew through last year. So really, if you're going to be going to either of those parks, probably you're not going to the parks a day or two before. You're definitely not going the day of, and you're probably not going for a couple days after. So they almost lost a week's worth of attendance. And I'm not mistaken, there were 2 hurricanes that came through last fall, weren't there?
There sure were. Now, one of them ended up kind of missing, so probably the day after they could have still got some people, but there were
They,
2.
they did. They did, but the one that kind of missed them a little bit, it wasn't planned to miss them. So the people that are making their plans are going to go to the park. We're not going to go to the park. They had already decided they weren't going to go to the park, and
Yeah,
hurricanes can be unpredictable. They may say they may miss it, may miss you, but then the shift in the wind goes and it goes 5 miles to the north and you get hit. But
yeah.
so no, they have teased that they are going to be doing some new attractions and rides in the next year or two. I checked the database at Roller Coaster Database. There's nothing on the docket for this year that's not already known, which is a park up in Williamsburg, but not at least not for the 2 in Florida. But at the same time, they are teasing that there's something coming around the corner and that they intend to invest in those properties to bolster attendance.
And they've just been, you got to give them a hand clap because they have just been handling the addition of new rides unlike anyone else. When you think about 2020, the year of COVID, that year they had planned to build into the 2020 season to open for that spring that everything closed down. Texas Stingray in San Antonio. For that same year, they had planned Icebreaker in Orlando. They had Iron Gwazi in Tampa, and they had Pantheon in Williamsburg. And that was an investment made into the year that we now know as the COVID year, 2020. And to bounce back from that and to be able to be continuing to add new experiences for their guests is pretty impressive. SeaWorld Orlando last year added Penguin Trek, and this year they're adding in the new flying theater over the Arctic. And that's not to mention that in between then and now, they added in Pipeline. That's a remarkable resume for a park that is bouncing back from the global pandemic.
And them, as well as a bunch of other organizations and venues that weathered the storm. And every time you feel like you're getting on the other side of it, especially if you're a park in Florida, here comes a hurricane or two hurricanes that knocks you off balance again. Those are things that they can plan into everything that happens. But wow, when you're having the tumultuous brief history like we've had the last 5 years, for them to bounce back and do the experiences and the rides that they're doing, yeah, like you said, hand clap for them. Especially with the competitive market that Florida is. It's always been competitive, but wow, with the announcements coming from Disney that things are becoming coming in the future with the expansion of Magic Kingdom and Epic Universe opening up in a couple months. You got SeaWorld over there making some bold investments and trying to draw people their way.
You sure do. So today is March 5th, March 4th, March 5th, something like that. And that means it's almost time for some of your favorite regional, maybe seasonal parks to open up for the year. Frontier City is opening up on March 14th if you're in the Oklahoma area. Dollywood is opening on March 14th, of course, everyone's favorite park in Tennessee. Carowinds is opening up the day after on March 15th. And then the weekend after that, on March 22nd, a bunch more parks are opening up. Enchanted Forest in Oregon. I believe Gilroy Gardens is opening up that day, as well as Lagoon in Utah. So exciting time of year, just because we're almost to the point where we can go to parks without having to think about the dreaded winter. Ugh.
Yeah, some of us anyway. No, I was saying earlier before we were on here that the February 15th through March 15th in Ohio is just the worst time because you're in the house because it's too cold before February 15th, and you kind of resign yourself to that, and you can plan around it. And then the weather starts messing with you on February 16th. You'll get a 60-degree day, followed up by a 30-degree day, and then you'll have 65, and then a couple inches of snow and 25 the next day. And so, and usually by March 15th, after that month is over, you usually get a pretty good steady diet of mid 50s, low 60s temperatures, and you can exhale and be outdoors. But yeah, there's some places can go. They can start going to the parks this week. Some they don't close in Florida, but in Ohio and the northern half of the country, yeah, we're getting ready to emerge from the absolute worst time of the year, and that is that corridor between February 15th and March 15th. So, are we ready for number 6?
Let's
We're ready
do
for
it.
number 6. And of course, we knew this was going to be kind of the last one here for this week. I've seen the video, and I still can't believe it. Kingda Ka, the 19-year run, it came down. It was a heck of a run. There's only 2 roller coasters like that I know of. The one up in Cedar Point and Kingda Ka, of course. And I don't know, was the drop ride that was, and I can't think of the name of the drop ride that was attached to it. Is that the tallest drop ride that in the United States?
Yeah, Zumanjaro is the tallest drop tower in the world.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
How high did it go? Was it because the roller coaster itself was over 400 feet, but did it go all the way? What was it?
You know what? I don't know off the top of my head. Let's take a look. The internet will surely have an answer for us.
I'm sure they will. If it won't, AI will. But they bring down an iconic roller. You're looking that up. Well, they bring down an iconic roller coaster like that. Of course, you got to be thinking what they're thinking in the future is going to replace it. Now, who knows? They may have brought it down because of expenses, which I'm sure that played a lot into it. But at the same time, it's going to have an open spot of land there that they're hopefully going to develop something for it.
So 415 feet is the height for Zumanjaro. Did you ever get the chance to ride Kingda Ka or Zumanjaro?
No, on both. I could not do something dropping that high. I can't even wrap my head around how tall that is to just be dangling with your feet there and dropping. That would just. There's better ways to die. I'm sorry.
No, there is not, in fact. But Kingda Ka was an excellent experience. It was the thing I'll say. You've ridden Top Thrill Dragster.
Yes.
The way I would compare it is the launch was about the same. Obviously, the restraints were a little more restrictive,
Hmm.
but the way up, you kind of do this spin thing on the way up, right? You do the little whip.
Right.
That whip on King Dakar was so much more aggressive than on Top Thrill Dragster. I don't know what it was about it, but it was like you just got flung to the side. So that was pretty cool.
But again, it was just very interesting to see something that large, that iconic. Yeah, I'm sure people that saw it go down were in shock, still thinking, "Yeah, I still can't believe this is happening."
Right.
But it's when they go up that tall, they do have to come down at some point.
That's right. So that's what we got for pick six this week. It was a good week, except for in Jackson, New Jersey.
All right, well, Cleet, we're going to start off with our first guest. He's coming to us from, I believe he's in Orlando. I'm not sure. He might be able to clear that up. But his name is Chuck Salvo. He is a chief happiness architect, culture change agent, author, talent development strategist, and keynote speaker. He works with a group in Orlando called the Magic Makers Group, and he's got a couple other businesses that he does with that. One of which is his own consulting company. So I'll let him do most of the introduction on that because I'll probably mess it up. But welcome, Chuck Salvo.
Thanks, David. You did pretty good. You did all right there. Not bad.
So are you based out of Orlando right now?
Actually, I live in Flagler Beach, which is about an hour west of Orlando, and or east of Orlando, and on the Atlantic Ocean. And so, as I evolved out of Disney and started my own company, I decided to go to the ocean.
I love that. Yeah, tell us about your background. How did you get started in your career? And you've written one of an incredible book in R.A.V.E, Respect and Value Everyone. How did you learn the lessons along the way? Tell us about your career.
Well, I mean, I actually started as a trained chef. I have a culinary degree and started in the cooking field, and then just evolved and really became very interested in adult education, along with hospitality business. And ironically, that really made me a target for Disney to come recruiting me about 20 years ago. And I worked 15 years for Disney in the Disney Institute, helping organizations find their magic. And then when I was able to retire, you can see by my gray beard, when I was able to retire, I decided to start my own company, helping people find their happiness. And that's how I came up with my title, Chief Happiness Architect, because people all want to be happy, except there has to be an architecture to it. You have to figure it out. You have to really design a way for your happiness to be consistent.
So when you were at the Disney Institute, were you doing facilitations or were you leading sessions? I have actually two of the Disney Institute certificates on myself. But were you one of the facilitators, or what were you? What role did you play?
Congratulations! There? I was actually a leader of the advisory and the professional development end of Disney Institute, and yes, because I was that, I had to facilitate also, because that was part of our motto that our leaders were teachers. And so it just gave me an incredible background. I got to travel the world, helping organizations in their actual headquarters, but I also had a chance to teach all the courses at Disneyland and Disney World.
That's pretty special.
So most of those were cast members
that teach at Disney. No, at Disneyland, Disney World. So you have the Disney University, which is really the cast members learning about Disney. Right. But about 30 years ago, a book came out, In Search of Excellence, and it featured Disney and how they help the business behind the magic, if you will. And so the Disney Institute was started because businesses kept coming into Disney and saying, please teach me how Disney performs that magic. And that's how the Disney Institute was formed, which is the outward-facing arm of Disney.
Okay. I think you know about that Disney University, don't you?
Of course.
Yes, you know the whole structure. Yeah.
Of course. So with your book, R.A.V.E, Respect and Value Everyone, what was it in the workplace? What did you see that made you think, you know what, I'm going to write a book and this is what I want it to be about. What was it?
Well, actually, when I started Disney back in 2005, they had a similar program called R.A.V.E. That was different from mine, but it was really about respecting people. And I really felt a passion for that. And they stopped teaching that about 10 years ago in their traditions course. And I always felt that that was missing. So I always felt that that was really a point that Disney was so great at, really respecting and valuing everyone. So it really became the title of my book as I started going out helping companies and really started seeing that people really are struggling with building individual relationships. Pre-COVID, the politics that are going on right now, it's really the telephone. You know, people are so tied to the computers and telephones that they really struggle in focusing on how to build individual relationships. So one of my clients, a very large, very large uh, food and beverage company, said, "Hey, we have employees, leaders that are of all different ethnicities and all different cultures, and they're about to kill each other. Can you build a course for us where they can get along?" And of course, my first thought was, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
Mm.
And then I started thinking back on all my education at Disney and prior to Disney and all the companies I was able to help. And I said, man, maybe I can develop this program. So it became workshops that I started doing for universities and for companies. And when I saw the joy of these people who were literally at each other's throats when they walked out of the seminar smiling and having their arms around each other, just through literally teaching them how to engage with one another on one-on-one individual relationships, it really became a passion of mine. So I decided to write the book about
Well, go through the rave concept and how that applies.
it. It really is structured to think about, okay, first of all, I need to respect somebody. I first have to be able to respect myself. So I need to I really need to understand. Even chapter one is treat others the way you want to be treated. You know, the old golden rule. You know, so I couldn't stop there. Of course, I would have just said, let's have to leave the rest of the book blank. And if you just treat other people the way you want to be treated, you're going to be in good shape to start with. Then I started realizing that, you know, you really have to focus in on personality types. Do I know what my personality type is? Which I'm an expressive, you know. But then if somebody else is like David, if you're an analytic, and Clint, you're a driver. You know, I need to, if I'm aware of that, I know how to talk to you more. If you're David, if you're an analytic, I'm going to know that you want more detail when I'm talking to you and having conversations. But Cleet, if you're a driver, you want the information right now, you know, and I need to be clear on that. I can't dilly dally around my information that I'm talking about. You want that. So respecting that person's personality type is a great way to really supercharge that the initial conversations and really start building a trusting relationship with one another.
Yeah, when we talk about the Attractions Group podcast is about mostly the attractions industry, and
Yeah.
in the industry, you take a lot of theme parks and you factor in part-time people and seasonal employees. Even the small parks, they're talking about hundreds of people, and the mid-sized ones are already in the thousands. And when you take that number of people, and a lot of them are being hired each season, and all of a sudden all these strangers come together that have never worked together, and you talk about getting to know people's personalities. Well, when you hire people in lumps, you're not going to know personalities coming in. Is that now the concept that, you know, respect? I'm having a brain fart. And value, respect and value everybody. Sorry, that's so elementary that the average person just can pick it up right away. But in those instances, when you're forced to collaborate with people you never met before, how how can you consult that into being in a company that whose population and their employees changes maybe daily?
Well, David, I mean, first of all, the brilliance of Disney and legacy of Disney was that you needed to build simple structures for people to understand and have this foundational basis for it. So the basis of so if you're hiring people that have the propensity to want to have good relationships first, so it really starts in the selection and hiring phase of it. However, then if you at Disney, for example, they're well known for that first day at work is not going to your work location. It's called traditions, and they teach core concepts of what their purpose is. Why do I come to work each day at Disney? And at Disney, it's we create happiness. And then it gives some very clear set of expectations and behaviors. So basically, day traditions is literally teaching that very consistent foundation that everybody in the company is held responsible to. And so if you're teaching that from day one in that 30-day, 90-day probationary period, you're getting really a clear idea. First of all, you've hired the type of person, hopefully, that will be more, have the propensity to service guests better. I mean, Cleet, you've gone through that, right? The traditions course.
Yeah, it's a wonderful course. It I learned so much as far as what my job was going to look like, but also just as a human being around other people.
Right. And my first day, I can remember it's over, golly, over 20 years ago. So, but the people at my table, I had an owl trainer, I had a roller coaster engineer, I had a housekeeper. You had me, entertainment, the Disney Event Group education guy, and I had a Wide World of Sports uh, agent. So, I mean, what a diverse. So immediately we learned that we are all in it together. So back to your question, David, that really challenging organizations to hire to their culture first, instead of trying to make it like a date and talk them into working for you. You really want to let them know who
Mhm.
you are, and really ask the questions that really decide whether they are a right fit or for you, but also are you a right fit for them? It's it needs to be a
Mhm.
symbiotic relationship. It can't be just this.
Yeah.
The first date and then you have a disaster on your hands because the person
Yeah.
wasn't really experiencing what you told them was the actual culture.
Okay, Chuck. When you go to contract and do some consulting with companies, regardless of whether or not it has nothing to do with the attractions industry or it's in it, do you? This is just a question. Do companies come in thinking they know what their culture is and they try to hire that? Meanwhile, they may have never gone through that to really know what their culture is, and they're mismatching. They maybe have their culture what they aspire to be, not necessarily what they are.
Yeah, I mean, very few companies really focus. They do. Everybody's well trained at getting mission, vision, and values, but actually building an operational structure for what their culture is really missing in today's corporate America and in organizations. So when I come in as a consultant, I first listen to the voice of the people. I do an assessment, what I call a cultural assessment, and listen to the folks and hear what they're saying. And what I bring back to the leaders of the organization, I mean, more often than not, they kind of knew what I was going to hear, but they didn't want to kind of admit it,
Hmm.
or some of that are really some. I share with them quotes. I never share. It's all confidential, so I never share the individual and make sure that the individual is hidden on what they said. But I'll share with them quotes, and that's emotionally draining to those leaders because they're like, wow, these people really think this about us, or they're really struggling here, or they're really struggling there. And then together, because what you can't do is read a Disney book and come in and do and just plug in, because an attraction is an attraction, but a hospital is a hospital, an airline is an airline. So it
Hmm.
has to be built for them, about them. So I would say, though, David, back to your point, because you're a show about attractions and parks, is that the model works for everybody. It's just the personalization that really needs to be focused in. So even another attraction other than Disney has to really say, okay, what is my mantra? What is my culture about,
Hmm.
and how do I want to hire for that? Customer service is going to be similar of what you want to achieve, but how you achieve it is really by building a clear architecture, a clear structure, a clear blueprint for how a culture thrives.
So you've referenced your time at Disney a bunch and talking about how you learned so much through that time. How did you go from living those experiences out to learning the things you felt like you needed to learn from that experience? You hear it all the time, you got to learn from whatever happens. You can learn from it, but sometimes that's tricky. Sometimes it's tricky to know what the lesson is supposed to be. How do you go about that?
I was with a client today, Cleet, and they asked me that question, and you have to basically have the courage to leap. Once when I decided to retire, when the retirement happened, I could have just crawled into a fetal position and said, "Okay, this is my life now, and I'm going to do that." Instead, though, I really said, "Okay, I really have a passion for this." So, what's your passion in life? And then you just got to leap and do it. And what I realized is that my life experiences really prepared me for these questions and answers that these people are going through. Because, I was telling somebody that, you almost go through this imposter syndrome, right? Do I really know what I think I know? You know? But then when you get in and talking to people, you realize that, I was given this incredible education, in culinary school. I was able to work for companies like Hyatt and Hershey. And then, of course, the culminated with Disney. I mean, I was very, very blessed at the background I was able to have. And then with Disney, I was able to work with all these incredible Fortune 500 companies that were not only did I teach them what our thought theory was, I would learn from them what their theories were. So it became, a master class in what and what not to do.
Why do you think people struggle today in building strong relationships, not necessarily just with people that they interface with in the public, like guests or customers, whatever that may be, but even with their own coworkers? Because I've done a lot of contract work with different companies in the attractions industry, outside of that industry, and worked with vendors, worked with just any kind of suppliers. And it's a very cutthroat world. But also, why is it that people struggle to do that, to set up those relationships and know where the balance and boundaries and just respect for other people?
Yeah, I mean, David, I think it's been like a snowball effect of things that have happened. The culture of computers and video games came aboard, texting came aboard from that. Then you compound that with COVID and having a worldwide pandemic. I mean, who would have figured that one? On top of it, social unrest came on top of that. And then this cancel culture, this was piled on top of all of that. So people with all those situations happening in the world, people became very scared to interact with one another. And so I always say to people, I'm not going to go to Cleet and say, hey, Cleet, nice to meet you. What's your political stance? I mean, that would be crazy, right? Yet, if you're watching the media, you think that's exactly what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, some of my best friends, I write about in the book, some of my best friends are so diametrically opposed to some of my views. But boy, what I'd miss out on if they weren't my friends, because the diversity
Mm-hmm.
of thought is where great ideas and great relationships come from. So I teach people first to start with the basics, that foundation, right? And that foundation, I kind of call it virtually breaking bread. I start with, first trying to understand what the personality types, which is what we talked about. And then I ask simple things like, Clee, when you were growing up, what was the food that your mom or dad or your household used to make that you loved? Like, what was that?
My grandma made some great stuffing.
What'd she make? Great what?
Stuffing. Thanksgiving time.
Stuffing. So
Yes.
it's Thanksgiving time,
So
right?
good.
I love that. How about you, David? Do you have any like cultural heritage or food that you remember growing up?
Mm, I remember our Christmas parties that we had. We had a big one on my mom's side, big one on my father's side. He had passed away, but the family still got together. And on one side, the family has 6 to 7 brothers and sisters. The other has 11. The parties get big. So there's always an abundance of food, and everybody's got their specialty things that they bring. And literally, at a very young age, you're loosening your belt buckle. So there wasn't really
Yeah,
one. There's
and I
just
came from an
there's just
Italian. Yeah. Yeah, I came from an Italian family, so we would have all the Italian food, and they may have not served me wine when I was a young child. So I think the statute of limitations is gone by that, but I won't out them. But so what we just did there is a simple exercise that I would do with individuals, and we shared an emotional connection, right? Your grandma's stuffing,
Mhm,
did that bring a smile to your face, Cleet? Your memory of your dad and the potlucks that you had. I mean, that little connection, that emotional connection, and just virtually breaking bread together, just talking about food. You could talk about sports, you could talk about the hobbies, music, whatever it might be, but you start there. Later on, as you build trust and build relationships, you might get into deeper conversations about, the world and how and how it's working. But then you've built credibility with one another, and therefore you won't get
mhm.
be a victim of herd thinking, or you won't be, because I know Cleet for Cleet, I know David for David, Chuck for Chuck. So now we have some trust, and we're able to engage much better together, and have a stronger relationship where we can maybe step a little bit further and have some deeper debates.
So you're clearly such a vault of emotional and corporate intelligence, really. And you mentioned briefly a moment ago about diversity of opinions and the way that that can be good for us. Can you talk a little bit about how that is good for not only the corporate world, but for every person who might be a part of that as an individual?
Absolutely. We tend to think of things nowadays, and the media is a major driver of that, of like, is 5 plus 5 equals 10, right? And no matter
Mhm.
what, 5 plus 5 equals 10. And Cleet, you might say 6 plus 4 equals 10. I'll say, no, it doesn't. And I say, wait a second, it really does. 7 plus 3, David might say, equals 10. All those solutions equal 10. So what we have to realize is that there's different paths and different ways to get to some of the same solutions. Or, what I'll say is, you have like three choices when you're in a situation like this, right? They're either going to listen to your idea and they're going to take your idea. They're going to put your idea off, but you're going to listen to their idea, and you might learn something from the way they're going to approach it. Or the third route, and this is what's really magical about it, is sometimes there becomes this melded idea, right?
Right.
And that melded idea is a much better idea than both the single ideas together. And that's what versatility of thought does. Versatility of thought really drives that energy and that passion, and that's where ideas like the airplane came, and like digital came, and computers came, and look where we're headed now with AI. I mean, they did not come from single thought
Mhm.
process. They came from brainstorming and challenging one another to move further, and that's what great relationships will do.
That's amazing.
Well, Chuck, yeah, Chuck, with the book that you wrote now, you talked about a lot of the things that are in the book, but I want to give you a chance to talk about the book and how you came to write it, what things formed your thought process for that, and also I kind of like the, if you want to get into it, your dedication of why you wrote the book from a personal level.
Yeah, thank you. My grandkids, Neelan and Peyton, my daughter Lauren, who's a single mom trying to raise a family. My
It's a
grandson is
nice name, by the
autistic.
way.
Pardon me?
Lauren, I like that name. That's my daughter's name.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, no, it's a wonderful name. And then my wife Barbara, and we, to listen to my granddaughter come back and talk about how my grandson's being bullied because he has autism, and or because he's different, or to hear how she was being told about, you know, at her age, they didn't see race, creed, or color. They just saw Jane and Jill, or Joey, and it was starting to break my heart, because that innocence is really, we should learn from that innocence, as opposed to the fracturing that we allow it to happen in our world. So the legacy of my grandkids and helping support them, and especially my daughter being a single mom whose father isn't really engaged. I want to make sure I build a legacy for my grandkids, not just financially, but also something that they could learn from and help this world be a better world. So that was really my motivation to write the book. You trying to make me cry, David, or what?
That's such a
No,
great,
no, no.
wonderful thing to hear. I mean, it's with a title like Respect and Value Everyone and these things you're talking about, the level of kindness that you're writing about. You're writing about, the corporate side of it is great is one thing, but it's just the human value of kindness in a lot of ways. And so it's kind of wonderful to hear that the person who wrote that did it for such a pure and wonderful reason, at least from my perspective.
Oh, thank you. And Clete, the other thing, I love the accolades and the pureness, but the other thing you learn about if you follow this process is, Clete, you might come around and say, I think he's a jerk, and we might, in our relationship, might not click. But at least we've tried.
Yeah.
And at least we might respect each other in the workplace. We don't need to
Mhm.
be friends. So sometimes by following this process too, instead of just judging people without having that first conversation, at
Mhm.
least you have the conversation and learn that maybe you aren't a match, whether it be and you don't get along, and the end game of that might be, hey, we're just going to stay away from each other. So that's okay too.
Yeah, I've never been in a situation where I wouldn't work with somebody just because I didn't particularly care for the person, didn't particularly care for me. They may be the best person for the job as long as you can work with them.
Exactly. But other people might have different views. I've had situations in my work life where a person just didn't like me and didn't want to work with me, and I had to challenge myself to go out to lunch with them and try to at least win them over. And when we realized that we weren't going to get there, we at least were able to have a working relationship, and knew to steer clear of one another in certain situations. But that was valuable also.
Chuck, in your book, I forget what chapter it is. Forgive me. There was a story
That's
that
okay.
you had mentioned with there's a vice president. I don't remember his exact title while you were working at Disney, but he was new coming into the position, and you of course worked underneath him, and everybody sort of at your level or maybe above or below were trying to get time with him to more or less make their face known, make an impression to the boss, whatever it may be. And I don't know how long that time was, but it was a little bit of time, I think, between the time that he arrived and the time you actually got to talk to him. And the way I read it in your book, I kind of surmise it to be that he meant it as a compliment to you. But I was kind of curious how it was received on the other side at that time, because you had said, made some comment that well, it took a while, or whatever. It was kind of a playful comment, with probably some truth behind it. But
Yeah,
in his comment back to you was, you're not that important. Now, you
it
can say that in a
was.
different tone of voice, and it means different things. But can you tell a little bit of that story?
Yeah, it was probably one of my greatest life lessons, David. I mean, so here the new manager comes into the role. I'm under that leader, and I'm a high performer, and I'm relatively high in the organization. And so I assume he's going to meet me. I mean, I'm a high performer. I'm a hot dog, And so literally, it was like a couple months before, and I kept reaching out saying, "Hey, are we going to meet? Are we going to get together?" And so like 2 months passed, and finally he scheduled it. And so what's going through my mind is, "Oh my golly, is he making changes? Am I out? Am I in?" So. I was really blown away by that. And so I come into the office, and what you were alluding to, David, I said to him was, "Oh, nice to finally meet you." I'm sure I said it in that tone, right? And I'm sure I was very
None of us have ever
snarky.
done
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I've never done that. I'm never
Yeah.
sarcastic. and he said, Chuck, he said, I just wanted to tell you something. He said, you know, you're not that important. And I was like, whoa. And I say in the book that like there, Mickey Mouse does punch me in the face, you know, and I was like, wow. And he said, I just took over the role. And he said, the situation, there was a lot of fires going on. And so he said, "You're a high performer, so you should think more highly of yourself." He said, "The reason I wasn't engaging with you was because I had no problem with you. And so you should be a little bit more caring of how you feel about yourself." And I was like, wow. And that became such an incredible lesson for me that, once you get yourself out of the way and you really start caring about other people and caring about what your task is or what your role is or what your family life is like or what your kids need, that's the most important thing, that you're really not that important. You should really focus on your different mission.
That's incredible, incredible to be able to live that and take that lesson. Are there any other stories from your time at Disney that are in the book or that you'd like to share?
Yeah, some people always ask me like, "What's my favorite ride?" And I tell them that it's a small world. And they're like, "Really? That dorky little ride that's playing that song over?" And now probably people are watching this podcast are going to be really mad at me because they're thinking of that song over and over again. It's going to be an earwig
Right.
for all day long for them. But what's beautiful about it? Think about that. That's this ride that is so simple and so basic, but generation after generation after generation are bringing their kids and their kids' kids and their kids' kids back to ride that ride, all because it has a meaning of hope. It's a small world after all. So to me, that epitomizes rave and respect and value everyone. So of course I'm biased, and that's my favorite ride. But that's one of the stories I tell in the book. But it truly is one of my favorite rides and one of my favorite memories as I think about my life at Disney.
Well, Chuck, it's been a pleasure having you on. I hope we get to have you on again sometime in the future. Now, you wrote the book. I don't know if you have other books under your name, but you want to talk about some of those or maybe the R.A.V.E. book itself, and where
Yeah,
people
well,
can get a hold of that and how to get a hold of you.
thank you so much. I mean, you can go to Salvo Innovative Solutions or just Google Chuck Salvo nowadays. It's pretty easy to get. I even looked at myself in AI and Grok and Chat GPT. You could find me there amazingly. But all you really need to do is if you go to Amazon and type in Chuck Salvo or you type in R.A.V.E., How to Respect and Value Everyone, it of course will come up. I That was my first book. I'm proud to say it was quite a passion of love. And my next book that I'm working on right now is a children's version of R.A.V.E. and a teen version of R.A.V.E. that can be taught in
Oh,
classrooms. So hopefully I'll get that out in the next months and or within the next year. But that's my next thing. And my granddaughter is actually going to be the illustrator and co-author of it. My 11-year-old
oh, nice,
granddaughter Peyton. So
very cool.
that's what the next form of rave. And also, if you go to my website, respectandvalueeveryone.com, which is the book's website, there's people who have loved the logo that you see in the back. So now I'm starting a merchandise store with I have teddy bears and T-shirts and hats that you can wear around too. So it's been beyond my wildest dreams how it's been taking off, and I really appreciate you all talking about it and sharing my story.
Well,
Well,
it's
we
a great
really
story.
appreciate
It's a
you as
great
well.
Absolutely, and it's a great story. It's a great book, and you wrote it for a great cause, not just from a personal level, but from a professional level, and for relationships anywhere, whether it's interpersonal or it's corporate. And so the links to how to get in touch with you and the website will be on our Facebook feed and also probably our Twitter feed. I don't know, they call it X feed, whatever it's called, and also underneath this video on YouTube. So Chuck, it's great having you, and wish you the
Pleasure
best,
meeting
and
you
talk
both,
to you next
gentlemen.
time.
Thank you so much.
All right, it was a pleasure to have such a bank of knowledge on here this week
Yes.
with that interview.
Yeah, and
Absolutely
if people that
was.
have done a bunch of different things for a bunch of different people. He's worked with Disney, he's worked with other companies as a vendor, and also through his career. It's great to have someone on that can talk about simple things that honestly you just need to hear from other people. It's one of those where you hear somebody saying like, "Why didn't I think of that?" And it's such a simple
Right.
concept, but sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees.
That's right. So thank you so much for watching this week's episode of the Attractions Group podcast, for tuning in to the interview. Check down below. You can get yourself a copy of R.A.V.E. Great read, must read, I might call it, if you're working in the industry and you feel like sometimes you want to take that next step into building those relationships that can go so
Mm-hmm.
far. So we'll see you next week here on the Attractions Group
All right.
podcast. Hit the subscribe, hit the like, and David, sign us off.
All right. And that's it for us this week. Talk to or see you next week, Cleet. And next week we have our planned guest. We'll say planned because sometimes things change, but is with the company called 3DX Scenic here in Cincinnati. They design the experiences. Someone decides what they want to be as part of their attraction or the story to tell. They give their information to Mark and his company, and they design it, and then they put it forth. And these are some of the figurines that you may see in different locations or different venues. So it'll be a very good discussion next week about immersive experiences and how to get all those, how parks get those to put out the story they want to tell people.
How exciting. Well, we
So
will
with
see
that,
you then.
yes, take care.